Hello, and welcome to this new interview. My name is Simon Scriver. I'm a professional fundraiser. First of all, let me apologize because it's really dark in this room, in my apartment. And also to apologize about my hair because I need a haircut. So apologies for my appearance. But the good news is someone who is a much brighter, more welcoming appearance is this person that I'm talking to today, who is Viki Ward, another professional fundraiser. Hello, Viki.
Hello.
You drinking your tea?
I can't hear you.
You can't hear me at all?
Oh, okay. No, I can now.
Oh, that's quick. Viki, who are you?
So I'm Viki. I am the head of fundraising at the British Youth Council. I've been fundraising for about 7 years and attempt to know what I'm talking about most of the time. That's probably about it. I really like individual fundraising.
That's good.
That's probably, I don't know if that's me in a nutshell, I guess.
That's a good nutshell. I mean, Viki does know what she's talking about, despite her lack of belief in that. And the interesting thing about Viki and what we're talking about today is that she has recently just started at this new organization. How long ago? A couple of months?
Yeah, September. So it's just about 3 months.
Yeah,
which is
so
crazy.
Still very early days, although it probably seems long. But the interesting thing is that Viki went into an organization who essentially had no fundraising strategy, no fundraising plan in place. And I know from places that you've worked before, Viki, and a lot of your fundraising interest is, like mine, small organizations who are starting from scratch. Is that fair to say?
Yes, accurate.
That's accurate. Good. So what I wanted to talk to you about is really, I suppose, on a theoretical level, for anyone who's watching this, or any small organizations, or anyone starting fundraising, the question of where do you start, and specifically in your own example, where do you start, or where did you start? So, I mean, first of all, what I want to ask you is almost like when you started day one, it's scary enough going into a new organization, surrounded by people who aren't fundraisers. What does that feel like going in for the first time and sitting at your new desk and with no fundraising in place?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty terrifying, and you feel quite a lot of pressure because suddenly you're there and everybody's got this expectation that now there's a fundraiser, there's going to be loads of money, and you have to really manage that expectation like really early on. That just because you're there now doesn't necessarily mean that tomorrow there's going to be £1 million in the bank, because sadly that's not how it works. So the first kind of thing that I did was I met with all of the staff, like every single member of staff. I met with them one-on-one. So that took up like my first week, where I just kind of learned as much about the organization as possible, learned about them and their role, and then kind of explained a bit about what I do and tried to manage expectations through those conversations, and also get a gauge on what people's perception of fundraising is, because I think as a fundraiser, I kind of live in this bubble where I think everybody knows what we do, and that's not really necessarily true. Like, people often associate being a fundraiser with that bake sales, and whilst that is a factor, it's not like a strategic point of view for fundraising, and it's not necessarily going to be in my strategic plan. So it's just kind of letting them understand what I'm going to try and do, other places to kind of prove like success rate, and just kind of I guess work out if there's anyone there that's got any real negative connotations towards fundraising, because I've worked in some places where people just don't get it. Like, people don't understand why you're there. They would have been funded for years by one source of income, and so they don't see the point of you, and they can be a bit hostile, and that's, you want to kind of nip that in the bud early on. So I guess my first week was just kind of making sure there wasn't anything like that, and if there was, to kind of address it. And yeah, and I have to say that, to be honest, like my current organization, there isn't anything like that. Everyone's been extremely supportive. So
is that true? I'm not going to make you
yeah
say, but I think, like, I mean, we've talked about that before, and in terms of like clients that I coach, and really just from talking to fundraisers all the time, when you're the one fundraiser in a place, it can be very lonely, and I think actually a huge part of a fundraiser's role that's or we don't talk about enough is this idea of managing staff around you, that you have to manage. I mean, you have to manage up to your CEO, you have to manage to your board, you have to manage the frontline staff, you know, anyone who's already there. You have to manage the expectations, and they're all involved in making it a great fundraising organization. So we have to kind of manage them to do, you know, to toe the line and do what we need them to do to help the fundraising. I mean, is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think that's really true. So like one of the first things I did, like after meeting all the staff, was like my trustee board happened to have a meeting like the next week, and so I went along and I did this like session with them around like myth busting of what it means for trustees to be involved with fundraising. It's something I've actually written about before, but it's it basically, I wanted to be clear, because where I work is the British Youth Council, so all of my trustees are under 25. So that's quite a significant factor of our trustee board. And so they're obviously concerned. They don't want to feel like they're going to be pressured to give because they don't feel like they've got the giving capacity, which is fine. Being a trustee is not a prerequisite to money, but at the same time, it's a case of having their support is really important, and having their buy-in in what kind of fundraising I want to work on, because they kind of hired me, and I think they thought that corporate fundraising was the only way to go, which is an option for us, but I'm very much a believer in individual giving, and I think it's long-term sustainable income, especially at the moment with, you know, we're leaving the EU, so our EU funding is going to disappear, so we have to fill that deficit. And it was really a case of just understanding what their concerns might be about being involved with fundraising, letting them know that it doesn't mean they have to ask for money, it doesn't mean they have to give money, but they have to be supportive in other ways. So, you know, I've already had them, every single member of my trustee board actually has given in some way, which is wonderful.
Wow,
and
that's great.
And I've got one who's specifically interested in working with me on individuals and engaging our alumni, and one that's specifically interested in working with corporates. So they've kind of really bought in, and they know now that when they go and talk at events, the need for fundraising, and that's something they've never done before. And it doesn't mean that they're asking people for money, they're just explaining why we need to do it, and it's been very well received by everyone that they've come across so far, which is great. So I
can imagine. I mean, I find that really interesting that they, you know, they're there already, they're engaging with people already, and it's almost like, not to undermine what you're doing, but it's a reasonably simple task to actually sit down with them and talk about, you know, guide them through it.
Yeah. Yes, I agree. Yeah.
Oh, good. I'm glad you agree. And it's the same with the staff as well. I mean, like you said, they don't, you know, staff on the board, they don't need to give. Although,
no, not at all.
Some of them will, and some of them have the capacity to. They don't need to fundraise, although some of them will and have the capacity to. But everyone needs to be, you know, part of the solution as opposed to be part of the problem.
Yeah, I think just as long as everybody kind of understands why we need fundraising and everyone's genuinely on board with it, because I think you can sometimes get people that sort of say, oh yeah, we need a fundraiser, because they think that that's just the only solution, and they don't really want to think about that or how they can speak about fundraising in a way that makes it come across well to outsiders, like our potential prospects.
Well, what they mean is we need money as opposed to we need the process of fundraising, and it is a process, but they just want the reward. And I always find that incredible that people whose salaries rely on it, whose work relies on it, whose stationery relies on it, and they still hate it. And don't want to get involved with it, you know, even in the most minor senses. They wish it didn't exist, but unfortunately, it's the world we.
Exactly. I mean, I think one of the key things that I've actually put in my strategic plan, which I've started writing, is so that, like, I've got a list of things that we need to kind of break down, and one of them is the idea that fundraising is a necessary evil, because it's not. It's necessary for our work, so that we can continue, so we can do even more great things for all the people that we help. And I think it's, you know, it's remembering that rather than thinking about it in just like a car salesy, smarmy type of thing. You ask for money. It's not that. It's so much more than that. It's so much more than, you know, it's making things happen. It's making our work possible, and that's what's important. And I think, yeah, I'm really grateful that my current trustees are so on board and so receptive to learning about fundraising. I had one who did the Santa run recently because it's Christmas time, and he was messaging me like, how can I get people to give? And every piece of advice I give him, he'd go away and do it. And he was like, wow, that works so well. So like, for instance, asking people for a specific amount rather than just saying, oh, can you support me? I'm doing this run. He then got like 20 people giving him £20, which was incredible. And then he hit his target, and it was, you know, and he hit it in about 2 days, and then he went over what he'd hoped for. And it's just that kind of receptiveness and understanding that, you know, I don't just say things because I think they're true. I say things because I've tried them and done them, and or at least I hope they work. So
I mean, that's your dream, isn't it? Or who would just do what you tell them to.
I know.
That's impressive. And what about who else was kind of in your network there? I mean, I'm assuming. I mean, did you have any donors before, or who do you start talking with in a brand new organization?
We had one donor, one person who gives regularly through payroll giving, who I have been in touch with because I wanted to make sure they knew that we were grateful for their support. But other than that, we didn't have anybody. So we kind of started with a couple of the trustees actually signed up for regular gifts because I'd set up a regular giving option for us on our website. And so we were sort of doing this session, and I kind of jokingly was like, oh, does anyone want to check if it works? And then 3 of them were like, oh, I'll check. Which was, I mean, it was so natural as well. It wasn't, I hadn't thought, oh, I'll see if I can get them to sign up. I genuinely was just like, oh, let's just see if it works. And then so they signed up. And then we did the big give, which was kind of a failure and a success because we'd signed up for it before I started, which is, you know, great initiative from the CEO who's there. But I kind of said early on when I got there that I didn't really think we were ready because we had no donors and we hadn't had any chance to kind of connect with people who had previously been involved with our work or gain any kind of network at all. So we kind of had to just jump in and try and do both at the same time, which it wouldn't have been my preference. My preference would have been to wait until next year's big give, and then we would have had a whole year to kind of reconnect with alumni from our work and that kind of thing. But you know, it was still a success. We still raised about £3,000, which is more than they've ever done there before, so I'll take it as a win.
And where did those donors come from? That was just you asking your network and people on the radar.
Exactly. So it was I set up a Friends of the British Youth Council group on LinkedIn, which has, you know, quite a few people in it now, and I got in touch with a couple of previous chairs, or so people who were there, you know, and then our trustees engaged with people that they know have been involved with the work, and, you know, gave email addresses or said, oh, we're doing a big give, a chance to double your donation. Be great to get some support. And it was really, I mean, I can't take full credit for it in any way because it was really a group effort of the CEO, the trustees, the staff, and myself trying to really push it out. So yeah, I mean, it was good, but I feel like we could have done much better if we'd had a bit more time. So
yeah, but I mean, sometimes you need to just kind of hit the ground, don't you, and just start doing it, because at least you have those people there for next year, you know, even next year when you have more time to come, and at least you're not starting from scratch. There's something else there. Yeah,
exactly. So I mean, it's like I say, a bit of a win and a bit of a lose, but I'll still take it as a win.
I remember because I did something a little similar to you when I started in an organization with no real fundraising in place, and I sat down with the board and I did the same thing. As I asked them to become monthly donors, and really, like, it was a planned thing for me, and I still recommend organizations do it. That it's like, you know, as an organization, you need to show that your board is you know, supporting, that they're willing to put money where their mouth is. Yeah, they volunteer their time, but I also believe everyone can afford €5 or £5 a month. And
well, so this is something that I signed up as a regular donor myself, because I don't like the idea of going to people and asking them to make a donation and then turn around going, well, what do you do? So I'd always like to be able to say, well, actually, I'm a regular donor as well, because I believe so strongly in the cause that I'm happy to invest my own money into it. And I think, and it kind of takes people back a little bit when you say that. And so I'm always a regular donor to any organization I've worked for, and I still am to previous organizations that I've left and moved on from, because I don't work in places where I don't think that they do great things. So why would I not donate to them, especially when I'm the type of person that does ask for money? And I think, and having said that to the trustees, kind of made them think, oh, well, if she's doing it, then maybe we probably should get on board.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's just my phone. I'll just turn that off.
You're right. Probably a donor. But yeah, I mean, you have to lead by example. The other thing I said to the board was that that I wanted them to know what it was like to be a donor, and so I wanted them to receive the same communications and go through the same experience. I mean, obviously, I just wanted their money, but as well, it was like that was a really good arguing point. It's like, you know, this. I want you to see that we're not bombarding people or making people feel guilty, or, you know, that you're going to have a pleasant experience when you go through this. So let me send this out to you and be a donor, be part of that monthly donor experience.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I always think about, because I know you do the mystery shopping of charities, which is terrifying. I always hope you never pick mine. But I always have that in the back of my mind, like, what if a friend of mine was a donor and they received communication? How embarrassed would I feel? So I always try and make sure that it would be a case of, I would be happy for my mum or my nan to receive it, that she would feel good about receiving whatever it is that I send out. And I kind of try and keep that personal aspect in it all the time. And being a donor myself means exactly that, that I get the communications, so therefore I understand how it looks to someone.
Yeah, and then it becomes easier for you to ask, because you know you're not asking people to enter this relationship which is going to be a shitty experience. It's a relationship that they're going to benefit from as well.
Exactly. Yeah,
that's interesting. The other thing I was going to ask you was about, I mean, spending your time. So obviously, you're full time, I believe. So you know, as an individual, you only have a limited amount of time, and if it's just you, if you're focused on one thing, something else just isn't moving, isn't getting done. How do you work out? How do you spend your time? Is there a system? Is there a trick to it?
So I mean, I tend to prioritize. So obviously the first couple of months is very much just getting all the systems in place so that I can do effective fundraising. So like the first month, I'd say I didn't really do any actual fundraising, like setting up our CRM system, which we use Donify, which is free when you first set it up, which is pretty good. And it links through to your website, so that once you've set up your online giving, it will then just put the donations into your CRM system. So it saves you admin time. So that it was kind of stuff like that was all my initial priority, and then it became about what's coming first. So like I knew the big give was coming, and I knew we were going to do the Santa Run, and I wanted to have like those things be a successful thing. But then also making time. So I work from home a couple of days a week, which is, you know, I'm quite lucky to be able to do that. But I use those days to like do the strategy and you know, really focus my attention when you're not sort of distracted by everything that's going on around you. And once that's actually with my trustees this weekend, and they're going to review it, and we'll sort of hopefully it's good. And then, you know, as of January, we'll probably launch it, and then I'll start using it as my actual tool and guideline for what I'm going to do going forwards. But so I've had from staff where they kind of thought that I'd come in and just do all their trust applications, and I was very clear that that was not what I was going to do when I first got there, because they were doing it anyway. So I wasn't just taking work off them. It was, my role is very much expanding on what we do. So they would continue to do that as normal until a time comes where I might have more time and capacity to do it, because I want to focus on other types of fundraising that they don't have the time and energy to do, obviously, because they're doing all their own work. So, I mean, that required a bit of managing of expectations around what I was there to do, and what my priority should be, because I think some people had an opinion that my priority should be trust fundraising, and actually that I had to be really clear that's not why I was there. I will do that, obviously, but at a later date, once other things are kind of set up and in place.
I suppose it can be quite easy for, I mean, I've seen this with a number of people coming into an organization, and they almost get pushed into the area that they don't want to. Like, it sounds like, I mean, I always get the impression you're quite a strong person, whatever you say, but that you'd be quite firm in not being pushed into doing the bake sales, not being pushed into doing it. Yeah, you have to have a bit of give in terms of it, but you know,
yeah, I mean,
you are the expert.
Yeah, so I mean, I said to everybody that I was happy to review anything that they had written, so that I kind of ensure that it was as good as it could be without like being patronizing. And everyone has taken that really well, and I've had a lot of people send me stuff through that they want to send off, and I'll tweak it, and then but usually it's great because they know their work better than anybody else does. But yeah, I mean, I think being clear about that was probably one of the main things that was stressed to me by the CEO when I got there. She was like, they will try and get you to do this, so make sure that you are strong and you're clear about what you're supposed to be doing, and that's actually not a priority for you right now. Like one day, yes, I will hopefully be able to oversee all of trust applications, but even then, I think it would still be great for it to be a collaborative effort between myself and project staff. So
yeah, I think it probably has to be. But it sounds like you're getting the support from your CEO, which maybe some people don't have.
Yes, I mean, I have to be honest. Though I'm very fortunate in how wonderful the CEO and the trustees are at this place. I can't.
The pay review?
I mean, it's tomorrow. Is that okay?
Who else do you get support from? Because I believe you have a coach, and
I do.
you
I
like me in fundraisers together and learning and working together, learning from each other. Who do you rely on?
Yeah. So I'm a big advocate for like just being friends with other fundraisers, especially if you're in a solo fundraising team. So yes, I have Richard Sped is my mentor. He's been mentoring me for a while now, and I see him every couple of weeks. And yeah, I mean, I would say it's an investment, and it's an investment in time. And my current work actually do pay. So, and I go to a lot of training events, and yeah, so like friends with you, friends with people like John Lepp and Laura, and yeah, like just lots of wonderful fundraisers who you can kind of bounce ideas off and speak to about things that other people that are not fundraisers may not necessarily understand. And I'd say there's more value in that than in anything else, really. Like, so there's the fundraising chat on Facebook and just being on Twitter, and like you say, so I blog about fundraising, not necessarily to kind of promote myself, but more to kind of self-reflect on what I'm working on, and kind of make sure that if it sounds okay in a blog, then it kind of gives me a better trail of thought when I'm working on things. So
yeah, absolutely. I mean, and fundraisers, or a lot of fundraisers, can be quite opinionated, which can be a good thing. I mean, I'm surprised how many people don't almost like put their appeals up online before they send them out, and just get hammered by other fundraisers. You're going to get a lot of advice in there that you won't take, but there's going to be advice in there you don't. But we don't always do that because it can be quite scary to ask for help, or even admit what you don't know. And there's a huge amount I don't know about everything.
Well, I mean, like the other week, so I sent you my strategy, and I was like, I was so embarrassed. I don't want you to read it because, I consider you a real knowledge of fundraising. So I'm embarrassed to admit that I don't know everything. And actually, it's okay that I don't know everything, because there's nothing fundraisers like more than giving advice to each other. I think it's one of the wonderful things about our sector.
And no one knows everything. I mean, I don't think I'm an expert, but it's like even the people who are out there speaking and running training courses and things like that, they need to be constantly developing, and they can learn something from someone who's gone through a unique experience. And my thing is always, as a fundraiser, why make the same mistake someone has already made? And the more people we talk to, it's like the less chance that we'll be making that same mistake.
Yeah.
You mentioned your blog there, so if people want to read your blog or subscribe to your mailing list, where do they go?
So it's Flight of the Fundraiser on WordPress, so just Google it and you'll find it. But I'm also on Twitter, which has a link to it in there.
Under what name?
Totally horrible. So when Simon and I first met, I'm just going to tell this story from my perspective to get it in there. So when Simon and I first met, he messaged me on Twitter and was like, "Oh, I'm really looking forward to meeting you at the IOF." And then I got there, and he kind of like pissed me off immediately, because he said to me, "It was like, oh yeah, me and Alex are talking about how we really want to meet you. I really can't wait to meet Viki Hayden-Smith." And I was like, "Not my name. That's not who I am." And it like threw me off completely, and I didn't want to talk to you. And it was only like the year after that we actually became friends.
Yeah.
Because you learned my name. So yeah, my name's Viki Hayden Ward.
Oh yeah, of course. So Flight Flight of the Fundraiser is your blog. Is that a Flight of the Navigators? Flight of the Navigator reference?
Yes, it was one of my favorite films as a child. I
Was it really?
kind of, yeah, and I was kind of coming up with ridiculous fundraising puns, and I don't know where that came from. But
it's a great movie, but you're.
yeah.
And then as well, I suppose the other thing worth mentioning is that me and you are going to be doing a session together next year at IOF, probably.
Yes, we are. So obviously, because we're both single and tremendously attractive, we're doing a session that's around fundraising and dating. Clearly, we're the fountain of knowledge on both those things.
Yeah. But I mean, we both believe there's a lot of overlap between dating people and wooing people and how you treat your donors. So we're bringing that into our session, aren't we?
Yeah, I mean, you should probably learn people's names before
that's really good. Very good advice. That's very good advice, Vanessa. Anyway, anything else you want to say or plug before we wrap this up?
I don't think so. I think we're good.
Right, great. Even better.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, thank you for joining us. And we, when I say we, I mean me. I hope you'll join us again in a future interview. And yeah, it was great. Thanks for sharing that, and best of luck in your fundraising in your new role.
You're welcome. Thank you so much.
Okay. Bye.